Healthcare, it's not the government's role to provide you with healthcare. You know, we used to have in the country, there's a lot of things that we used to do privately that we don't do now, and people don't even know it anymore. When immigrants are coming to this country, you'd have fraternal organizations. There'd be a group of Irish, a group of Italians. When you join an organization, you help each other out. If one of you lost your job, the others would chip in and help you out. That's how welfare is provided in a lot of ways, is private groups where they're taking care of each other like brothers. The beauty of that is now you knew. You know, it's like, oh, you're out of work? Well, here's some money, but I'm going to be watching you, making sure you work. If you don't work or you don't even look for a job, eventually I'm going to cut you off. Nowadays, people just file a form to the government and the money keeps rolling. And as long as they keep filing the form, they keep getting the money. There's no incentive to work anymore, and that's the problem with it. We need responsibility, oversee, and with private people, they do that.
What is the Libertarian's point of view on regulations on things such as fossil fuels, which will in the future affect how the freedom of the individuals and that are born in the future and how their reactions will be?
I'm not sure I'm grasping all of that. If you're talking about using fossil fuels, so we're going to end up being this polluted, smog-filled life, and we're going to run out of fossil fuels and all be savages and kill each other, which sadly a lot of people try to present it. It really just boils down to we need to protect us from safety issues. But if fossil fuels are the most efficient and least expensive means for providing energy now, that's what we should be using right now, of course. Yes, we want to promote more efficient means because we always like more efficient means. But if the efficiency isn't there, you know, like right now they keep shoving solar down our throats, but solar is not efficient yet. It's really inefficient. The wind farms have a lot of problems with the wind farms. We would love it if these were there. They're not there now. And we don't believe in putting them in here now if they're not functioning, if they're not effective. If fossil fuels is still working and there's still a ton of it, fine. If you want jobs, let us tap Alaska. There's a ton of it up there. Let us tap the Gulf. We're not tapping the Gulf, but you know what? We're giving permits and allowing other people to tap the Gulf. That doesn't make any sense. Why are we letting other countries tap the Gulf, but we're not? I hope that answers your question.
Could you elaborate just a little bit on the freedom of the individuals in the future, which could be compromised from our individuals?
Well, I don't see it in terms of fuel, but I absolutely see it in terms of government debt. Right now, the government has spent us into an oblivion, and we are so far in debt, we're not paying the bill, our children are paying the bill. That's why our big goal is to cut back on spending and cut the size of government, because it's our children and their children and children will have to pay for it. We are not paying for it. So you should not be able to pass any bill or any expenditure that's not going to be paid for in that term. It's crazy for them to be able to pass it in future terms and pass it off to our children.
You mentioned that you don't really agree with public education. So what do you feel would be a better system of educating youth?
Well, the problem is we do want everybody to be educated, of course. The problem is whenever the government gets involved, you get this one-size-fits-all situation. And like the Department of Education was created under Carter, and what has it done? Nothing. We can totally abandon that whole thing because what have we gotten since Carter that's better than what we had, say, in the 50s? People are getting great educations back then and do a lot more than in some cases we see now. We want everybody to be educated, but the local groups should be taking care of it. We would like at least more freedom where you could go to, if not charter or manual or any other schools, we can use it to private schools. But the sad thing is that right now I believe the average we're paying, I think most government schools, it costs them about $10,000 or more per student per year. And there are private schools out there that make a profit by charging people $4,000 to $8,000 because they can educate them far more cheaply. Because there's a lot of waste in the system, sadly. And so even if you just went to private schools, and a lot of people go to private schools, we could free up a lot more money that's being wasted in the system. It's a tricky subject because, yes, we want people to be educated, we just don't think the government does the best job. And if any way you can free it up to where more people can go to private schools and allow those to spring up, because even with the limited competition now, they can do it so much cheaper. Imagine if it just exploded and there are a lot more private schools, we could do it a lot cheaper.
What is the Libertarian's view on No Child Left Behind?
It's just a big government waste of time. I mean, come on, you guys are taking these tests, right? You're taking these things, and what do they have to do with anything you've learned during the course of the school year? It's bogus. And now, if the teachers are teaching to the test and not teaching to the subject matter, that's a waste of time. any of these federal bureaucracies, the federal government does not belong in the education system, period. And I don't want any of the money, any of the time wasted on taking tests that take you away from what you should be doing, which is having your teacher teach you what your subject matter is.
What's the libertarian policy on taxes as far as, would you promote more of a flat tax, or there's, like you said, 40% of, or the bottom 40% don't actually pay? Like, what's the libertarian policy?
Yeah, well, you know, you'll hear different opinions on that, because there are some people like the fair tax, some people like the flat tax. Obviously, what we want to do is get rid of the tax code. You know, the tax code right now has 3.8 million words in it, and it's something like, if you print it out, it's like 750,000 pages long. It's just insane. Nobody could know it. It's ridiculous. It's just a way of trying to engineer and push us to do different things. We could get rid of the tax code entirely and just put in a simple flat rate. Would be much more suitable, obviously. We have little issues with the income tax itself, just because it's punishing productivity and punishing people who are accomplishing. But if you have a flat tax, at least you could say if it's 2%, 3%, 5% for everybody, that sounds fair. Some people are pushing what we call the fair tax, which is not on income but on consumption, which makes sense too. They're saying, okay, what you spend money on, you'll pay a sales tax on. And in order to do that, though, you still have to have a limit where, like some people are promoting, where the first $30,000 there's no tax on, because then you don't want the poor to be paying more than the rich, obviously. But then again, this is beauty, because now if somebody's buying a yacht, he's paying a big, you know, there's no hiding income, no nothing. It's nice, simple to collect, and it's be a lot easier. There, right? Try to find somebody that big.
A little earlier, we were talking about oil, like fossil fuel use. I can see where you're coming from with that, but on the subject of like forested areas, when we chop those, we can like throw off the balance of ecosystems. So do we have the luxury to let the free market decide how we're going to use those resources when it can affect us in the long run?
You know, I love that, because a lot of people will say that. They'll say, well, wait a minute, we can't just let the free market take care of it, because all these forests will be torn down and everything. In actuality, governments are the absolute worst stewards of our natural resources in every situation. Especially if you look at countries that are poor, those governments will just destroy those countries. They don't care. When people own the land, when people own the fishing, when people own the trees, they usually take care of them. Most of the forest companies, like Weyerhaeuser, things like that, they plant the trees, to cut them down, to replant them, to cut them down. They want to continue in business. They don't just go in there and destroy everything. So don't be misled by thinking that the free market will destroy the land. No, because the free market wants to make sure that it keeps going. I do not want all of my forests destroyed, no. The federal government, though, owns something like 40% of all land in this country right now. And that's why we have forest fires and things like that are issues, because it's not being managed very well. I would rather have it forested and maintained than be held by the federal government, ignored, and burned down every year. Because that's a bigger waste and it's more polluting. Thank you. We have time.